All right, welcome to the Golden Belt Buckle Podcast. As usual, if you like what you're seeing and hearing, you find it interesting or stimulating, do me a favor, subscribe, leave your comments down below. I ask you to be polite to each other. If you want to say something, if you want to lambaste anyone, lambaste me for being the talking head. I can take it. So we're going to talk about the coming truck driver apocalypse and what we need to do about it, right? And we're going to look at this. Look, I'm a working man. I'm a truck driver. I'm a fleet guy, actually. I'm not an owner operator, and I'm not a corporate guy. I am a working man. So as a working man, I have certain interests as a working man, and that's the perspective I'm going to be hitting this solution or this whole issue from. So you read the articles, right? And I always assume we all know. I assume everybody knows what I know, right? But I don't know that people realize. I don't think they do, and I don't think we sometimes realize what side of this discussion we should be on. Okay, I'll put it to you like this: when we start getting on board with this narrative that there's a truck driver shortage and somehow we need to work to help fix it, I feel like we're like Dave Chappelle in that video where it was comical. He played a blind, I think he was a blind white supremacist. Anybody knows Dave Chappelle? Dave Chappelle is not white, right? So Dave Chappelle, as a black man, was attending Klan rallies. He was advocating for the KKK, and it was hilarious. And the reason it was funny is because he didn't know that he was black, right? And if you have an issue with that, your issue's with Dave Chappelle, not with me. But it illustrates, in my mind, this whole issue. If you're a truck driver and you're getting on board with this driver shortage thing, it doesn't matter if there is or there isn't. If you're a truck driver, you want there to be a driver shortage, okay? So you read these articles about how can we fix it? We got to make it more attractive. We got to get better pay. Maybe we can get autonomous vehicles. Maybe we can improve the driver conditions. All these, we're going to be 80,000 drivers short. 10 years, the average driver's in his 30s. Well, we need to find a way to attract 18-year-olds. Let's do that, a pilot program for 18-year-olds. My daughter got her AZ at 18. She doesn't drive, thankfully. But they come up with all these things that they're going to do. But the only problem is, here's where you slit your own throat. If you start getting on the bandwagon to solve this truck driver shortage, if there is one, you got to realize the more truckers there are, the more you as a trucker devalue your services. It makes it easier to fire you. It makes it easier to bully you, to not give you time off when you want it, right? It makes it easier to get rid of you and just bring the next truck jockey in who will work for peanuts. That's what it does if there's too many. It's like anything. It's supply and demand, okay? If you are a working person and you want your job to be lucrative, the last thing you want is there to be a glut of people who can do what you can do, right? So when you see these articles or watch these videos where people are panicking about the shortage, this truck driver shortage, they either don't know what they're doing and they're actually getting on with the wrong side, or maybe they're being sponsored by some corporation, or they're working in the interest of a corporation. But the American Trucking Association, that is a lobbying organization, not for you. When you read the American Trucking Association says this, Trucking Association says that, they're not working in the interests of the average driver. They're working on behalf, from what I read, of logistics fleets, logistics companies, and like the big trucking companies, right, that can afford to have depressed freight rates. That's who they're working with, okay? So they don't have your interest in mind. So we're going to talk right now. Actually, let me back up. Let's do it this way. I'll put it this way. Let's go from the micro to the macro, and I'll explain it to you this way. let's go to your company, just your company, okay? Now, I'm guilty of everything I'm talking about here, okay? Your company will have a recruiting bonus, right? A referral bonus oftentimes. And if you bring someone to your company, then they will give you a $500 referral bonus, right? If that person writes your name down, and if they stay for a certain amount of time, maybe you'll get a couple of $100 extra, right? And now, in one regard, that's an attractive offer, okay? If you can convince, if you were to really go to the stratosphere with that, and you went out and started convincing people, you work for a big fleet, you start convincing people to come out, you could potentially make a few $1,000s more every year. Now, not likely, I've tried it. And the problem with evangelizing for a company is that when it's dependent on the person that you referred writing your name down on the referral slip, they're probably going to write their friend's name down. So you just did a bunch of work for someone else. You just did a bunch of work for the company for which you are not getting any commission. So, or you probably won't, right? But it goes beyond that. If you're helping bring other drivers to your company, you're doing the work of a recruitment agency, then what you're doing is you're devaluing yourself. That's the cold hard truth. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't or you can't. Well, maybe I'm kind of saying you shouldn't. I more just want you to be aware of the reality of what you're doing when you take part in these programs. Because most truck drivers don't think like business people at all. And I'm not like a business hack either, okay? I'm a working man. I just read a little bit and I think about these things through sometimes, okay? So think about it. You're doing the work of a recruiting agency. A recruiting agency would take part of the new driver's salary, and that's how they're going to get paid, as part of that new guy's salary, either perpetually or for a certain amount of time. We would do it for just a couple of $100s. Right? Now, on principle, I don't really like the idea of referring a driver just on that basis alone. If you made it more lucrative for me, I would be the best salesman your company ever had. Absolutely. I would be sitting on the toilet looking for recruits, but that doesn't happen. I'd be looking for recruits on my phone on the toilet, by the way. That's what I'm saying. The problem is, yeah, so the compensation isn't there. And every time you bring someone to your company, you're devaluing yourself, because if your company has enough drivers, they can fire you. They're probably going to be more lenient with you if they know getting rid of you would disrupt their operations. But when they've got a glut of drivers, they can get rid of you because their operations aren't going to be hindered. It's to your advantage, really, if your company can't get anybody. And that's when you're going to get a raise. If your company can't get drivers, at some point they're going to have to look at the fact that, why is no one coming here? Why can't we keep anybody? And pay is going to come up, because you'll always lose your best people. They'll move on to bigger and better things. So if you want to get a raise, a real raise, one that lasts, I'm just saying, you got to understand. I'm not telling you not to be engaged, okay? Like, I'm always engaged wherever I work. I try to offer the best service I can to whoever I'm working for, whatever team I'm on. But I also understand these things, okay? So that's the macro. If you want to get a raise, if you really, you got to keep your value up. And by bringing new drivers in, you're devaluing yourself. And that's why when you you branch out a little bit further, this leads into the next one. You go a little bit further, and you think about the industry at large. When the industry has more than enough truck drivers, everybody's value goes down, because now you got a glut of drivers, right? And so when that happens, you call around because you're looking for another job, and nobody's going to negotiate with you. They're going to give you the league minimum. And generally that's what happens. But the whole reason they're giving you the league minimum, the whole reason in all my years of driving, 25 years, all anyone ever offers is the league minimum, is because there's actually not a shortage of truck drivers. If there was a shortage of truck drivers, there's no way when someone calls me up and asks me, they call me asking me to work for them. It happens all the time. There's no way I wouldn't be able to negotiate a little bit. With all my experience, clean CVOR record, over 1 million safe miles, there's no reason. All my experience, I do all sorts of different things in this world. So that right there, because there's not really a shortage, you can't negotiate. And the reason there's not a shortage is because, like in the United States and in Canada you got the temporary foreign worker program. In the United States, you got migrant truck drivers. All these people, the government's literally flooded the market full of truck drivers. So truck driver shortage it's a corporate problem. They don't want there to be trucker shortages because they want freight costs to be low. They don't want any interruption in their supply chain. They need to be competitive with the people they're competing against. They need freight just to be cheap. They need reliable service that's cheap, that they can call at any time and get their product moved. That's why corporations, this is their issue. You're the driver, you're the working man. This isn't your issue. Now, I'll read you what happened in 2020, because there actually was a driver shortage in 2020. And as a result of this driver shortage, freight rates went up, diesel prices went down. So I'll put it to you like this. Jacqueline Jolly lived this boom. This is from a Time article. She lived this boom and bust cycle. At first, when she and her husband entered the business in 2020, she says they got loads that paid as much as $4 to $5 a mile. Diesel prices were so low and rates were so high that the couple decided to take out a loan and buy a second truck for $80,000 and hire another driver. Things were good for a while, then their situation quickly changed. Diesel prices jumped from $2.50 a gallon to $5.99, and rates started falling. A load from New York to Texas that would have netted them $4,500 early in 2021 was making only $1,900 by 2023. And it goes on to say, today almost everyone in the spot market, drivers who aren't contracted with a particular company and thus can't add a fuel surcharge, is struggling. The spot market makes up 15% of truckers. The flood of drivers into the market, because there was a flood of drivers from 2020 to 2024, or even to now, there's a flood of drivers, and now trucking companies are going out of business, okay? The flood of drivers into the market has now created a surfeit of drivers who brokers and trucking companies can play off one another, driving rates lower and lower. What that means, so what happened to her? They ended up having to sell both their trucks, by the way, go back into construction. What they're talking about is brokers and trucking companies, they're trying to find someone that can do the freight for cheap. If they know there's a glut of truck drivers, of trucking companies, of owner-operators, big fleets, little fleets, if they know that they've got a glut of these people, they're going to pick up the phone and call Billy Belt Buckle Trucking. Hey, we got this guy over here says he's going to move our freight for $2 a mile. What can you do it for? And then I say, I can do it for, $1.50. Okay, great. They get back on the phone with her. Hey, look, Billy Belt Buckle says that he can do it for $1.50. Are you sure $2 is the best you can do? Oh no, I'll do it for $1.25. Okay, thank you. So then that's what they mean by playing it off each other. That is called supply and demand. Okay? These people in this story I just read you, they got in at a time when there literally was a driver shortage, and it worked in their favor. And you as a working person, you need to be thinking about, if I get fired today, can I just pick up the phone and get another job tomorrow in my area? Right? If not, you don't have a driver shortage, right? If you can't get in my area, you can get a job. I could probably get a job tomorrow doing some crappy job I don't like. But if I want to, can I get a good job, right? Or do I got to settle for a fly-by-night company, right? If you can't just quit one company today, go somewhere else tomorrow, there's no driver shortage, right? So you got to think about that. You got to think about keeping your wages up. Right? And this is why that video that not very many people watched about talking about, this is the Canadian issue now, the Canadian free trade agreement between provinces, I put a warning out there. Look, you got to really think about this. If the provinces were to get rid of all their exemptions, which include the different industries that they're protecting, if they were to get rid of all those, the market could just open right up. Third-party contractors, other provincial carriers could all come into these different provinces, and they would flood the market. Okay, they'd flood the market, giving all those protected industries but that are regulated another option. And that would drive wages down. It would create a massive upset in the market. You might lose your job. You might have to do something else you don't like. So anyways, that's something you got to think about. I'm not saying don't be engaged. I'm thinking think about it before you get on the bandwagon, who you're defending. You might just be defending a corporate shill. Anyway, take care. Cheers. That's all I got. Till next time, keep the rubber side down.